We just had parent-teacher interviews, digitally, but it happened. I'd like to take a little bit of time and talk about my approach to parent-teacher interviews, let you know a little bit about how I run things, some tips and ideas I've got. So, without further ado, let's do it. Parent-teacher interviews can be a scary thing for teachers. We never know when that parent's going to come in that's upset with something and take us by surprise, blindside us. That's always a source of anxiety, especially for me. I've only ever had one interview like that in my entire 13-year career so far, and it was the very first set of interviews I'd ever done as a teacher. Great way to start. But it just leaves that sense of every time going into parent-teacher interviews, you have in the back of your mind, is there somebody coming that is going to attack me, essentially? Is there somebody coming with a grievance, with a complaint that I'm unaware of and will be unprepared to deal with? So there's a few things that I just want to share about that today for anybody that may want to know some tips and strategies for how to have successful parent-teacher interviews. Parents are awesome people. They are the best support that a student has in their life. The parent is there at home on a daily basis, before school, after school. The guardian is there essentially setting the child up for success in whatever way that looks like. So we as teachers, we need to work as closely with parents as we possibly can. We need to make sure that we keep the lines of communication open, whether there's praise for a student, call home, send an email, tell the parent that their kid did something awesome. Or whether there's a concern, call home, send an email, open up that dialogue with parents. Parents are going to be there to support you, for the most part. So there's a few things that I always try to do with interviews to make sure that they're just as successful as possible. And the first thing that I'd recommend is asking the parent or guardian when they book a time to have the interview, making sure that the student can be there as well. I always start the conversations, obviously introducing myself, thanking parents and students for coming and for being there, and then I move right to the student right away. I start the conversation with a dialogue between the student and myself, and I ask a couple of questions. The first question is there something that you have found this year that we've done in class, whatever class it is, that has been really successful for you? Something that you found maybe comes a little bit easier, something that you got a mark you're really proud of, something that you're just finding success in. And I find that gives students a chance to open up the conversation on a positive note. They're probably as nervous to be there as the teacher is, due to the fact they might not know what the teacher's going to say. Parents are here. Is something bad going to come up? It gives the student a chance to start with something positive right away. The parent likes hearing what they're talking about and what they're proud of. And it gives me a chance to learn a little bit about that student. What are the activities that they like? What are the activities that they enjoy? What's working well for them? And I can make a little bit of a mental note then for things that I should do in the future, or activities I should bring back more this year in the course because it's working for this student. It's a great way to start. I then go to the opposite extreme, and I'm trying to get out right away something that might not be working as well for the student. Maybe this is already a concern that the parent and student have had in a discussion with each other. And so instead of beating around the bush and waiting for it to come out, the other question I then go with, okay, on the other side of the spectrum then, is there anything that we've done in class so far that you have had a little bit of trouble with, that you have maybe had to work a little bit harder to get? Maybe there was a mark you weren't quite as satisfied with. What's going on the other side of the spectrum? And that gives students a chance. It just opens up that opportunity for them to tell you about something that might not be working for them as well. Maybe there was a test they took and they didn't get a great mark, so you would get an answer along the lines of, oh, that quiz, I didn't get a great mark, or I didn't pass it, and then I can launch into a dialogue about my retest policy. I can tell parents that I absolutely do allow retests, and we can get into that conversation with the student. Here's what I expect from the student to do a retest. Here's what I'll do on my end. If there's something that we're doing in class that is like a technique, a teaching technique that I'm using that maybe the student's having a little bit of trouble with, then I can try to address it, and or even just make a mental note of, okay, that strategy isn't working so well for this student. Is there a way that I could change it? I have had conversations in the past with people about things like when we have a class that we have to take notes, which, I mean, it's school. You've got to take notes sometime. Occasionally, I'll move a little bit fast, and I leave a couple of students just behind. They don't quite get everything that they should be writing down, and I'm already on to the next slide. So I make a mental note of that. Okay, yep, I have to consciously slow it down a little bit, and I tell the parent and the student that, yep, that is my fault. I sincerely apologize. I will keep that in mind for the future. I've had some students that even bring it up to the degree of, Mr. T, could I get potentially a copy of the printed notes, the packet you're going to use, the slides you're going to use? And there's some students that their learning style works best that way. So absolutely, I will print off the slides. I'll just have a few extra packets that day, and I can pass it out to the couple students that will need that for their success. And then they can be following along. They're circling things, they're highlighting things, but it's a chance for the student to tell me what's going on from their perspective in class. So then after I've asked my two questions of the student, then I turn it over to my perspective, and I start talking to both parent and student, and I say, okay, so things from my perspective, these are the things that I'm noticing in class. I always start with the good things, obviously. My observations of the student, their sense of humor, they're polite, respectful, they're diligent, they're focused, the characteristics that I notice about these students. And again, it just kind of gets the smile going on the student's face. And parents love to hear that. Parents want to hear that. That is their child. They want to hear these good things about their student. If there is something that I'm noticing that might need to be addressed on more the other side, then that will come up next. And it's usually prefaced with something along the lines of, I've been noticing lately that I'm seeing this behavior or that behavior, or I'm not getting the work handed in terms of coming to a deadline. I'm bringing up whatever behavior that I'm noticing, trying to bring it up in even just that idea of lately. I'm noticing lately I'm seeing this coming up, and most often than not, the parent will be nodding, will be agreeing. Yeah, I've heard that from other teachers, or yeah, I've talked about this with the student. So then once I've brought that up, I again turn it back to the student. You're noticing I haven't involved the parent a lot in the discussion yet, and that's on purpose. I am not obviously intentionally ignoring the parent. I'm not being mean to the parent. I just want the parent to be as informed as possible about whatever's going on in their student's life from the teacher's perspective and their perspective. And then they have all the material that they need and all the information that they need to then discuss with me at the end. So I've turned back to the student and I've said, okay, so student, with this behavior that I'm noticing, maybe you're not focusing or whatever it is, what are some strategies that have worked for you in the past in order to help combat this behavior? Some strategies that have worked for you in previous grades or at home. What are some things that you could recommend? And I'll let the student tell me, and I've had students tell me before, I work better in quiet spaces, or I work better when I'm sitting nearer to the front of the room or the back of the room, or I'm kind of with my friends right now and the seating plan, and I probably shouldn't be. I've had students come up and tell me that, and that right away. Awesome. Thank you for that suggestion. I'll take that. I will do what I need to do to get those things in place for you. And then at this point, I turn it over to the parent, mom, dad, guardian. What are some strategies and some suggestions that you've got to help your student with this behavior, whatever that behavior is. And this opens up for the parent to tell me things that they've done that have worked for them, things that they do at home, things that other teachers have tried, and they've had conversations with other teachers. And it really gives the parents that sense of empowerment that they can suggest things for my teaching practice to help their student. The final thing in the order of the interview is I finish it off by saying, okay, mom, dad, parents, guardians, any other questions, any thoughts that you've got from your end? And that's the parents' chance to tell me anything else that they want to tell me, to ask me whatever they want to tell me. And I found that when it works through this formula, it works through this format, I have found nothing but success with these interviews. Like I said, the only negative interview that I've ever had has only been one time in 13 years, and that's usually 2 interview sessions a year for 13 years. I've only had one major negative experience. However, for maybe some of the newer teachers out there that might be thinking and wondering, what do I do if there's a parent that comes in and the conversation turns sour really quickly, goes south? Maybe they're getting verbally really aggressive, maybe their body language is getting aggressive. They've come in with something that has stuck in their craw, and the conversation's not going well. They're not listening to reason. They're not calming down. So I would recommend your best strategy, if your teachers talking to you now, teachers, and your best strategy, if a conversation isn't working, if a conversation isn't staying calm, you're feeling attacked, you're finding yourself getting upset, maybe your anger or whatever is rising as well, the number one thing you need to say is, we need to end this conversation here and pick it up again when there's an administrator present. Literally, those words, or as close to those words as you can. And then you stand up and you start making your way to the door. Nobody will fault you for that. Backlash will not come back on you for that. You've made the decision to say, this conversation, this meeting is not working. We're not getting anything accomplished, and we're just getting more and more upset with each other. So for everybody's safety, for everybody's mental health, we're done. We'll pick it back up when a principal, a vice principal can be present in the room as a mediator, as a protector for both sides, mainly for teacher. But again, you need to have enough of that forethought in the moment, the heated moment. You need to say, we'll pick this back up again when an administrator can be present, and then don't even give the opportunity for saying more things and getting back into it. Stand up and move toward the door. Open the door, let them walk out. If they don't seem to be moving, then teacher, you leave. You get out of that situation for your safety. And then immediately, obviously, go and tell your administrator what happened, what went down, and then between you work out how are you going to contact the parent again, when is it going to be, and the safety procedures in place after that. But teachers, please do stay safe in those situations. Again, rarely ever happens, but if it does, have that phrase ready. Be ready for that. But parents are our best allies. Parents are our best tools on the home front. So use those parents, have them on your side, start the communication in the year early. As often as you can, communicate with parents. That's something that I'm still working on in my practice. I'm not great on regular communication throughout the year, but definitely something number one on my growth plan is to regularly communicate with parents, send even mass emails to the whole class parents home telling, here's what we did this week, or making the point of once a week, send an email home to 3 parents telling them some positive things that you've noticed about their student. So I hope this helps. I hope that you can take something away from this, teachers, for parent-teacher interviews. They're not as scary as you build them up in your mind to be. But again, keep your head up. We're all in this together, and I'm pulling for you.